Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act.
We were girls and young women who were victimized by Epstein and Maxwell in a ring.
I know there are videos and photos. I know that Jeffrey had recording cameras in his house.
Powerful people who caused us harm are being protected and we're being exposed. It is meant to silence us.
It was hard for me being that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone, telling me they love me and, just turn their back on you in a second.
January 30th, 2026. Mark that date in blood, because the Department of Justice just cracked open the vault of secrets and dumped a 3 million-page nuclear load directly onto the internet. We're talking over 180,000 images and 2,000 high-definition videos that were never, ever meant to see the light of day. But as the digital dust settles, one name is rising to the top of the wreckage like a toxic bubble: Ellen DeGeneres. Wait, America's dancing sweetheart. The woman who told us to be kind. According to these bombshell DOJ leaks, the kindness was a front, and the reality was a nightmare staged on the infamous Epstein Island. But it gets darker. We're now seeing claims of what Ellen allegedly did to a 13-year-old Justin Bieber during those missing hours in Hollywood. Was she a mentor, or was she the gatekeeper to a playground of shadows? Why was Bieber's trauma treated like a punchline on her stage? Tonight, we aren't just connecting dots. We're exposing a web of power involving Diddy, Epstein, and the woman who laughed while the industry's most vulnerable were being traded like party favors. Are you ready to see the files Hollywood is dying to delete? Strap in, because the truth isn't just coming out, it's screaming. The DOJ did not just release documents, they released a map to the underworld of the elite, and right at the center of this map, sitting comfortably between the names of politicians and tech moguls, is Ellen DeGeneres. For years we were told that the Epstein list was a myth or a distraction, but the data dumped on January 30th proves that the network was far more integrated into mainstream entertainment than anyone dared to admit. The first 1,200 pages of this leak specifically detail the logistical coordination between high-profile talk show hosts and private island retreats. You have to ask yourself how a daytime television host becomes a primary contact for a billionaire financier with a taste for the unthinkable. The records indicate that Ellen was not just a casual acquaintance but a facilitator who used her massive platform to vet and groom the next generation of stars before they were introduced to the inner circle. This brings us directly to the tragic trajectory of Justin Bieber. When Justin arrived from Canada at the age of 13, he was the ultimate prize for these predators. He was talented, he was vulnerable, and he was completely unprotected. The documents suggest that his introduction to the world of Diddy and Epstein was not an accident of fame but a calculated handoff. We all remember the clips of Diddy claiming he had legal guardianship over Justin for 48 hours, but what the public did not see was the paperwork now surfaced in the DOJ files showing that Ellen's production associates were often the ones coordinating the travel and the private meetups. The investigative findings highlight a pattern of behavior that was hidden in plain sight. On her show, Ellen would often push Justin into uncomfortable corners, asking him intimate questions that no 13 or 14-year-old should be answering on national television. At the time we thought it was just her edgy style of humor, but now the files suggest these interviews were a form of psychological conditioning. It was a way to see how much the boy would tolerate and how well he could keep a secret under pressure. Anonymous sources from within the production crew at the time have started coming forward claiming that behind the scenes Ellen's demeanor toward the young star was cold and transactional. They describe an environment where Justin was treated less like a human being and more like a high-value asset to be traded between the industry giants. One leaked report mentions a specific incident in 2010 where a private jet was chartered from a Burbank hangar directly to a Caribbean location linked to Epstein's properties. The manifest for that flight reportedly included a high-profile host and a teenage guest whose description matches Bieber perfectly. This was the era of the purple hoodie and the innocent smile, but the DOJ files paint a picture of a kid who was being led into a lion's den by the very people the world trusted to mentor him. The public reaction to these specific revelations has been a mixture of horror and realization. People are going back and re-watching every interaction between Ellen and Justin, and the sarcasm that once seemed harmless now feels sinister. There is a specific segment from 2011 where Ellen joked about having hidden cameras in her guest dressing rooms. Back then the audience roared with laughter, but today that joke feels like a confession of the surveillance culture that Epstein pioneered and Diddy allegedly perfected. The corruption being described here is not just financial, it is a moral bankruptcy that allowed the most powerful people in Hollywood to treat children as currency. The DOJ files include encrypted messages between various industry fixers discussing the price of access to the Bieber brand. They weren't talking about concert tickets or album sales, they were talking about physical presence at private gatherings where phones were confiscated and non-disclosure agreements were signed in blood. The scale of the abuse of power is staggering. We are talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that functioned as a front for a global trafficking ring, and Ellen DeGeneres was the friendly face that made it all look normal. The documents also touch on the role of Usher and how he was allegedly pressured by the higher-ups to facilitate Justin's entry into Diddy's circle. But it always comes back to the networking hub of the daytime talk show. That set was a hunting ground. It was where the elites could scout new talent and gauge their marketability while also checking their compliance. If a young artist was willing to be humiliated for a few laughs on Ellen's couch, it was a signal that they could be manipulated in private. The investigative reports claim that there are hundreds of hours of raw, unedited footage from Ellen's backstage areas that the DOJ has seized. This footage reportedly contains interactions that were never meant for broadcast, showing the true nature of the relationship between these stars and the children they were supposedly helping. The anonymous whistleblowers are calling it the Great Unmasking. They claim that the reason so many celebrities are currently silent is because they know their names are in those 3 million pages. They know the videos exist, and they know that the DOJ is no longer playing games. As we dig deeper into Section 1 of these leaks, the focus shifts toward the specific claims of what allegedly happened during the private island visits. Witnesses describe a hierarchy where certain celebrities acted as recruiters. The claims against Ellen are particularly dark because they involve the betrayal of a child's trust. Justin reportedly viewed her as a safe maternal figure in a scary industry. To find out that this trust was allegedly used to deliver him into the hands of people like Epstein is a level of villainy that most people cannot comprehend. The lavish spending mentioned in the files shows that millions of dollars were funneled through shell companies to cover the costs of these trips, ensuring that no paper trail led back to the major studios. But the DOJ has followed the money. They have tracked the wire transfers from offshore accounts to the private security firms that guarded these island compounds. They have the receipts for the silence. And as we transition into the specific breakdown of the scandal in the next part of this investigation, it becomes clear that Justin Bieber was just the tip of the iceberg in a sea of forgotten victims who were sacrificed for the entertainment of the elite. The pattern is set, the players are identified, and the fallout is only just beginning as the world prepares to see the footage that was never supposed to leak. The transition from the grooming phase to the actual execution of these private gatherings is where the DOJ files become graphic and the involvement of Ellen DeGeneres takes a turn from suspicious to allegedly criminal. Part 2 of this investigation focuses on the actual mechanics of the freak-off culture and how the talk show set served as a literal waiting room for the island. According to the leaked reports, the 3 million pages contain a subset of documents referred to as the guest management logs. These logs detail how young stars were scheduled for appearances on major networks as a cover for their actual location. When the public thought Justin Bieber was in a studio in Burbank preparing for a performance, the DOJ files suggest he was actually being transported to a secondary location controlled by the Diddy and Epstein network. The connection between Ellen and Diddy was not just a professional alliance, it was a deep logistical partnership. Leaked emails from the late 2000s show that Ellen's top producers were in constant communication with Diddy's inner circle regarding Justin's availability for what they called private mentoring sessions. These sessions are now being identified by investigators as the primary window for the alleged abuse. The documents describe a level of corruption that involves the systematic silencing of anyone who tried to intervene. One particular section of the leak highlights an anonymous security guard who worked on the set of the Ellen DeGeneres show for over 5 years. This whistleblower claims that there were specific days when the entire set was placed on a total lockdown. No cell phones, no staff, and no witnesses. During these lockdowns, high-profile guests like Diddy would arrive through a private entrance and spend hours in the dressing rooms with the younger guests. The whistleblower alleges that he once overheard Justin crying in a room while Ellen and Diddy laughed in the hallway, discussing how much money the next tour would generate. This is the dark reality of the industry, where the pain of a child was treated as a necessary overhead cost for a global brand. The DOJ files go on to describe the lavish spending used to keep these secrets buried. Millions of dollars were allegedly spent on high-end gift bags that were actually loaded with cash and encrypted devices used to communicate outside the reach of the law. These gift bags are what Ali Carter referred to when she spoke about being a party favor. The files confirm that at these elite gatherings, people were indeed treated as commodities to be picked up and taken off the table. Public reactions to these specific findings have been explosive, with hashtags calling for the immediate arrest of the entire Hollywood circle. The corruption is not just limited to the individuals but extends to the legal teams that protected them. The reports show that whenever a rumor started to circulate about what was happening to Justin or other young stars, a team of high-priced lawyers would descend with ironclad non-disclosure agreements. These NDAs were so restrictive that they allegedly included threats against the families of the victims. The DOJ is now looking into whether these legal tactics constitute racketeering and witness tampering. The scandal breakdown reveals that the abuse of power was not a series of isolated incidents but a cohesive system designed to protect the predators at the top while feeding them a constant stream of new talent. The exaggerated detail in the files mentions specific parties where the guest list was a who is who of the 2026 political landscape. This is why the dump is being called a nuclear load, because it doesn't just burn Hollywood, it burns the entire structure of power. There are claims in the files that Ellen's famous kindness dance was actually a coded signal to her associates in the audience. One theory emerging from the investigative community suggests that certain music cues or dance moves indicated which guests were ready for the next level of the initiation. While this sounds like something out of a thriller, the DOJ has included transcripts of audio recordings where Ellen and a prominent record executive discuss a certain boy's readiness for the island. The language used is cold and detached, referring to the child as a product that needs to be shipped before the expiration date. This refers to the age of the victims, because in this twisted world, the younger the artist, the higher their value. Justin Bieber was the ultimate product. The files suggest that his famous breakdown in 2014, where he was arrested for drag racing and appeared in a mugshot with a haunting smile, was actually a cry for help that the industry turned into a marketing opportunity. The documents show that while the world was mocking him for being a brat, he was actually being subjected. Psychological pressure to keep the secrets of the Ellen and Diddy circle. The fallout from this section of the leak is already manifesting in the financial markets. Major sponsors who have supported Ellen for decades are pulling their ads and scrubbed their websites of her image. The financial crisis within the entertainment industry is reaching a boiling point as the DOJ hints that the next wave of releases will include bank statements showing direct payments from Epstein's accounts to major production houses. The corruption was the economy. The lavish lifestyle that we saw on screen was funded by the exploitation of the people we were told to admire. Public figures who once stood by Ellen are now issuing carefully worded statements of distancing themselves, but the internet does not forget. The DOJ has confirmed that they have the metadata from the images showing Ellen present at locations that she publicly denied ever visiting. One specific image reportedly shows her on a private terrace with a group of masked individuals, while a young boy who looks like a teenage Bieber sits in the corner looking dazed. As we move toward the final section of the main body, the focus turns to the physical evidence being held in the DOJ vault. The 2,000 videos are said to contain footage from the hidden cameras Jeffrey Epstein had installed in his homes and on his island. Investigators claim that these videos show Ellen in a completely different light. Gone is the dancing host, and in her place is a woman who oversaw the distribution of victims. The leaked reports claim that one video shows a direct interaction between Ellen and a 14-year-old Justin, where she tells him that he belongs to the industry now and that he must do what is asked of him if he wants to stay famous. This is the smoking gun that the world has been waiting for. It confirms that the mentorship was a trap and the industry was a prison. The pattern of betrayal is so consistent that it leaves no room for doubt. The DOJ is preparing for a massive series of grand jury indictments, and the names on the list are going to send shockwaves through every household in America. The investigation into the fallout and the ultimate consequences for these people is what we will cover next as the walls finally close in on the house that Ellen built. The transition from the height of fame to the depth of infamy is happening in real time, and the world is watching as the DOJ reveals exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes. The final section of the DOJ dump is where the theoretical meets the tactical as the full weight of the legal system begins to crush the facade of the elite. This third part of the investigation dives into the ultimate fallout and the sheer scale of the consequences currently looming over the head of Ellen DeGeneres and her high-profile associates. According to the internal DOJ memos included in the 3 million pages, the department is not just looking for a simple apology or a settlement. They are building a case for a massive RICO indictment that would categorize the entire entertainment circle as a criminal enterprise. The documents suggest that the specific claims regarding Justin Bieber and the island are the cornerstone of a much larger prosecution strategy aimed at dismantling the system of access that allowed these crimes to go unpunished for decades. The leaked reports indicate that as of early 2026, multiple federal probes have been opened into the financial records of several major television networks that allegedly turned a blind eye to the behavior occurring behind the scenes of their top-rated shows. The fallout is already extending into the highest levels of corporate leadership. The DOJ files contain correspondence between board members of major media conglomerates discussing the potential liability of keeping Ellen on the air as far back as 2020. It appears the industry knew the storm was coming long before the public did. The corruption is described as a rot that started at the top and worked its way down to the security guards and production assistants who were paid for their silence. Investigative findings suggest that a massive financial crisis is hitting Hollywood as insurers refuse to cover the legal costs of those named in the Epstein files. We are seeing a wave of hypothetical resignations turning into very real departures as executives scramble to distance themselves from the Diddy and Ellen connection. The public backlash has moved beyond social media and into the streets, with protests forming outside the gates of closed studios demanding that every second of the 2,000 seized videos be screened before a grand jury. One of the most chilling aspects of Section 3 is the mention of a specific government investigation into the use of non-disclosure agreements to hide criminal activity. The DOJ is arguing that these NDAs were used as a weapon of intimidation against minors like Justin Bieber to ensure that the secrets of the island never reached the public ear. The tension is building as the world waits for the first round of subpoenas to be served to the names highlighted in the DOJ's nuclear load. There is talk of a secret facility where the victims are now being interviewed by federal agents away from the influence of their industry handlers. Anonymous sources claim that Justin Bieber has already spent dozens of hours in these depositions, providing a first-hand account of the environments he was forced into. The quotes emerging from these alleged depositions describe a world where the laws of the land stopped at the door of the private jet and the morality of the host disappeared once the cameras stopped rolling. The public reaction has shifted from shock to a demand for total transparency. People are asking why it took until 2026 for these files to be cracked open, and why certain individuals were allowed to retire gracefully instead of facing the music. The exaggerated detail in the files about the lavish spending on hush money is particularly galling to a public struggling with economic hardship. To see that millions were spent to facilitate the suffering of a child while the world cheered for a dance segment is a bitter pill that Hollywood is being forced to swallow. The DOJ's report on the abuse of power includes a timeline of every missed opportunity to stop the predators, showing that the system was designed to protect the revenue stream over the human beings who generated it. The financial consequences for the Ellen brand are estimated to be in the hundreds of millions, as her entire catalog is being pulled from streaming services and international markets. As the legal net tightens, the rumors of high-profile figures fleeing to non-extradition countries are being confirmed by flight tracking data included in the leaks. The pattern of behavior is clear. When the light of truth gets too bright, the cockroaches of the industry run for the shadows. But the DOJ has anticipated this. The files include a list of international warrants that are ready to be triggered the moment an indictment is unsealed. The transition from a beloved public figure to a fugitive of justice is a narrative that even the best Hollywood scriptwriter couldn't have imagined. The tension and anticipation are at an all-time high as the DOJ hints that the next document release will focus on the specific role of the music industry's biggest moguls in the trafficking network. Every name that ever appeared in a Bieber credits list or sat on the couch with Ellen is under the microscope. The final pages of the main body of the leak discuss the psychological toll on the public. We are witnessing the death of the celebrity idol. The corruption revealed in the DOJ files has broken the trust between the audience and the screen. People are realizing that the smiles were scripted and the mentorship was a myth. The fallout is a total cultural reset where the power is being taken back by the people who refuse to be entertained by a lie. The investigative reports conclude that the evidence against Ellen and her circle is overwhelming and that the era of the untouchable elite is officially over. The world is now looking toward the courthouse doors, waiting for the final act of this dark drama to play out in front of a judge and a jury of the people. The evidence is in the vault, the names are on the list, and the truth is finally louder than the music. This isn't just a scandal, it is the end of an era and the beginning of a long overdue reckoning for those who thought they were above the law. The consequences are not just legal, they are historical. This event will be remembered as the moment the vault was cracked and the industry's soul was laid bare for all to see. The 3.5 million pages are a testament to the resilience of the victims who stayed silent for so long and the power of the truth to eventually find its way out. As the DOJ prepares to release the final batch of images, the world stands on the brink of a new reality where the famous are held to the same standard as the forgotten. The investigation into Ellen's alleged actions and the trauma of Justin Bieber is the key that unlocked the door to a room that was never meant to be opened. Now that it is open, there is no going back. The fallout will continue to spread, touching every corner of the globe until every name is cleared or every crime is punished. The silence has been broken and the roar of the truth is just getting started. The evidence is out there, and for the first time in history, the gatekeepers have lost control of the narrative. This isn't just about a list or a series of documents. It's about the thousands of lives that were treated as disposable in the pursuit of power and ratings. We are watching the collapse of a golden era built on a foundation of lies, and the names we once cheered for are now being etched into the dark history of the DOJ's vault. But the real question remains, how much deeper does this go? If Ellen and Diddy were just the facilitators, who were the ultimate architects of this system? Are we ready to see the names that haven't been leaked yet? Do you believe these celebrities should face life sentences? Or is the industry too far gone to be saved? This is a conversation that Hollywood wants to bury, but we are the ones who keep the light on. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me who you think is next to fall. If you want to stay ahead of the files the elite are trying to delete, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The truth is out there, and we won't stop until every page is read. Check out our next video on the screen to see the hidden footage they tried to burn. Don't look away now. The reckoning has only just begun.